All right, another classic album review. This whole week, I've decided to do a bunch of classic albums that I love talking about, and I have a lot to say. And this one is, one of the all-time classics. There's so much to say, and I hope I don't run the risk of this being like an hour-long video. But hey, we're going to take this journey together, so let's dive in. Metropolis Part 2 Scenes of a Memory by Dream Theater. Dream Theater. Man, do we really even need to introduce these guys? What I will do is I'll put a context of where the band was at this point. So, Dream Theater, forefathers of progressive metal, got their start in the late 80s, early 90s, came on the scene hard with Images and Words in 1992, actually got their start with When Day and Dream Unite in 1989, and then came out with Awake in 1994, and then they came out with Falling Into Infinity in 1997, which they were pressured by the record studio to become a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more radio friendly, and there was a lot of tension, shall we say, in the recording studio between the producers and the band. At this point in the career, the band didn't quite know what to kind of do, like they weren't really seeing the success that they really wanted, even though they were one of the biggest progressive metal bands out there. And they decided to drop the producers and record companies and put all of their eggs in one basket with one album to kind of rule them all. But no, they went out on their own. They decided to do their own kind of record label. They produced the album themselves, and they figured if we are going to do this, we have to do it our way. So at this point, Kevin Moore had already left the band, and they already put out an album with Derek Shernanen on Falling Into Infinity. For whatever reason or another, Derek left. I can't honestly remember why, if it was just scheduling or they didn't really feel it. And at that point, Mike Portnoy and John Petrucci had already played a number of gigs with Jordan Rudess on Liquid Tension Experiment, so they decided to bring him into the fold. From there, you basically have the classic Dream Theater lineup that would follow them right up until 2009 or so. So for like 10 full years, you had this massive lineup of just this creative outpour. Originally, kind of the idea of this whole Metropolis Part 2 was a sequel to Metropolis Part 1 off of their Images and Words album that was going to be similar to Change of Seasons, in a 20-minute epic that was going to cap off Falling Into Infinity, except it didn't really work out that way. And Change of Seasons was written to honor Mike Portnoy's, I believe it was his mother. So they released Change of Seasons with a bunch of live recordings that they had done as well to kind of master off that EP. A brilliant work. They just started to write and flush out this story that they had started with Metropolis Part 1, and it became the Scenes of a Memory. One of the things that I love about this album is twofold. One, the story, and two, the concept. So with a concept album such as this that follows a narrative flow, half the fun is uncovering the story for yourself. So I'm going to do like a broad brush interpretation of it, because one of the things that I love is at the time the band was really getting into reincarnation and second lives and forgotten memories and lost memories, hence the whole Scenes from a Memory, where we have this figure of Nicholas that's going into therapy as he's having these dreams of a past life where he was this woman of Victoria that was murdered. And so now he has to piece together these old memories that he can't remember to solve the crime of who killed her in a past life. Nicholas basically pieces together what happened that final evening of that fatal tragedy, the final confrontation, and piecing together who he was in that past life and coming to terms and accepting the grace of the whole thing and moving on. And then the big twist at the end where, maybe he's not the only one that is in a new life, and the cycle continues. So it's really, really fun to listen to this album as a concept and listening to it as a story, as well as the whole concept of second life and forgotten memories and how past lives influence and shape who we are now, if that's something that you believe in. So really, really fun, and I love the story, and I love the characters, and I love where everything goes in that. Now, paired beautifully with this is just outstanding music. Dream Theater really hit brilliance on this album, and that is showcased obviously through a lot of the heavier stuff, because this has some of their heavier stuff, such as Beyond This Life, Home, and Finally Free. But honestly, what I really love is some of the more intimate and somber moments. Through Her Eyes is that power ballad that I just love and makes me melt. And I love the fact that it actually ends the first act, as well as The Spirit Carries On. I mean, how can you not listen to The Spirit Carries On and not instantly begin to weep? Like, I remember listening to this live when they played the album in full a couple of years ago. I got so emotional when I was listening to that. Like, when we finally get to that "Move on, be brave, don't weep at my grave," I just started to wholeheartedly cry, because not only is this voice from beyond the grave telling this individual, look, I'm fine, move on, continue your journey, everything is good, like, we figured this all out, I'm fine. But it's also him telling himself, because it's that resurrection. He knows that everything is fine, because it is. So it's this self-actualization, this immediate self-actualization. That's not this whole, if you think it, it will happen. It literally is this person telling himself that everything is good, right? And it's that brilliance of, like, if I die tomorrow, I'll be all right, because I know that the spirit carries on, because I'm living proof of that. It's so heartwarming and heart-wrenching that I can't help but gush. And along that, James LeBray's vocals on this are soaring, and John Petrucci's guitar works are just heart-wrenching. His soaring soundscapes and ability to grab onto your heartstrings and not let go is just a testament to the masterclass of these musicians and artists. And of course, we have some of those huge bangers. Overture, Strange Deja Vu, and Fatal Tragedy being in the first half of the album. Huge bangers, meaty riffs, instantly recognizable and instant classics in that sense. Home being like the big powerhouse. Like, I still love that stank face, that like, it's just, I don't know, I love it. I can't recreate it with my vocal works. Finally Free, having that final play out, like, we have that whole slow burn, that slow build to the final moments of these characters in both sets of the past and the future, and having that huge build up where it's like, we'll meet again, my friend, someday soon, and then that, just having that bow, bow, now, down, bow, now, bow, now. Like, it's almost like a Beatles She's So Heavy. Now, obviously, I can't talk about this album without talking about the Dance of Eternity. Like, come on, let's give it up for the Dance of Eternity. This instrumental is just redonkulous. Like, I know I'm not a musician. You know, I've got my ukulele that I'll play every once in a while, and it's mainly for, like, old story times that I used to do. So I know I can't shred. But, like, the time signatures that change every other second, and the boys are, like, dancing towards it. Like, even though this is called the Dance of Eternity, you have to be, like, really weirdly loose on your feet. Like, I really want to see a dance interpretation of this. It's complex, it's meaty, and one of the things that I love about this is, like, I don't want to say it's very easy, but it's easy to write a complex track that changes, you know, rhythm sections and meters and time signatures every other second or so. But it's extremely hard to write one that doesn't sound like garbage or pots and pans being thrown down a flight of stairs. You have to really know what you're doing to make it pleasant to listen to make it like, yes, that's amazing. Because otherwise, you're basically just playing random notes on guitars, keyboards, and the drums. And anybody can do that. But to make it sound easy, accessible, and pleasant is a hard feat to do. And Dance of Eternity walks that razor edge of being infinitely complex, but immediately accessible to the listener. Yeah, this album it skyrocketed Dream Theater from a staple of progressive metal music with standout albums such as Images of Words and Awake, and catapulted them into the pantheon of progressive rock. Because before, I would say that yes, they were in amongst the godfathers of progressive metal. This album launched them into the pantheon of progressive rock to stand toe-to-toe with like past albums such as like Pink Floyd, King Crimson, Yes, and Genesis. This album really did, prove to the world that not only can metal music be progressive, but progressive rock could be metal. And it was that kind of flip that really did something. This is one of those very rare albums that had a cultural shift. And from this point in 1999, all the way through, I would say right up until like Black Clouds and Silver Linings, they were riding that wave of creativity, putting out album after album after album of masterpiece, 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 masterpiece. And this album is one of those. So, Scenes from a Memory, Metropolis Part 2 by Dream Theater is an absolute masterpiece.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
I would be shocked to hear any of my viewers hadn't heard this album, but if you haven't, if you're one of those select few, immediately go out and listen to it. Like, this is one of those albums that crosses genres where I feel like anybody that likes music will find something to love on this album. It is one of those very rare albums that it's extremely accessible for almost anybody. Like, even if you love just nothing but space rock and psychedelic stuff, there will be something on this album for you to enjoy. So, yeah. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And honestly, that's all I've got to say about Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory from Dream Theater. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Because I can't see too many people hating this album. So, yeah. And also, if you like what you see and you want to help support me, check out my Patreon. I've left the link down below. You can be added to the end credits, as well as get some really fun perks. So that's all I got. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to continue with a few other classic albums. I've got a few album recommendations from people from Twitter that I've already, I know the album, so I'm going to go ahead and do those. So yeah, keep tuned for that. Having a blast revisiting some of these albums that I love, because this is kind of like the no man's land of musical releases. I think like the next big one is Transatlantic next month, so it gives me a chance to revisit some of the classics and go back and listen to some of the albums that I missed in 2020. So there you go. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out. That's part of the song. Yeah.